Welcome to Peel the Onion. I'm your host, Cody McLean, and in this series called Biblical Paradoxes, we dare to sit with the tensions that most people avoid. So let's get uncomfortable, let's ask hard questions with soft hearts, let's peel the onion and see what's at the center. Today we're going to be looking at the royal bloodline of Jesus and why it matters way more than you think. We get it in two Gospels, two family trees, but only one Messiah. But somehow the road from David to Jesus takes two completely different paths. And if the goal was to prove that Jesus is the rightful heir to David's throne, I think this might have been the worst way to do it. Both Gospels are trying to do the same thing, connect Jesus to King David, but from there it completely falls apart. In Matthew chapter 1, it starts at Abraham, moves forward through David's royal son Solomon, then down to Joseph, and in Luke chapter 3, it starts with Jesus going backward, not just to David, but all the way to Adam. And instead of Solomon, it goes through Nathan, another son of David. So right away, one major divergence. It's the same David, but different sons, and that would change everything downstream in the genealogy. Let's zoom in on some key features. The direction in Matthew goes from Abraham to Jesus. The direction in Luke goes from Jesus to Adam. In Matthew, it goes through David's royal son Solomon, but in Luke, it goes through a different son, Nathan. The number of generations from David to Jesus in Matthew is 26. In Luke, there's 41 generations in between. Joseph's father in Matthew is Jacob, but Luke says Joseph's father is Heli. Comparing the two genealogies, they only share 6 names, 6 out of 26 in Matthew versus 6 out of 41 in Luke. If you're counting Jesus and David, again, you can add 2 numbers to both of those, 28 and 43. The shared names in the same spot, just one, and that's Joseph, Jesus' father. If these are both true, Joseph had 2 different fathers, and the royal line somehow jumped between 2 sons of David who spawned completely different family trees. And the conclusion here, they both can't be right. A closer look at Matthew's genealogy emphasizes a neat symbolic pattern. We get 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the Babylonian exile, and then 14 generations from the exile to the Messiah. And that sounds pretty tidy until you actually count them. It's actually 41 names, not 42, because David is double counted as the end of the first set and the beginning of the second set. And if we look back to 1 Chronicles in chapter 3, we can see part of this genealogy. And what's interesting is Matthew actually skips 3 names from a father and son line that appear there, Ahaziah, Joash, and Amaziah. But why would he do this? It's to make the numbers fit. But why? Because David in Hebrew is 14. He's using numerology to tie Jesus to David symbolically, not historically. Luke, on the other hand, gives a much longer genealogy, 41 generations from David to Jesus compared to Matthew's 26, with nearly all different names, except for Amos, Eliakim, and Zerubbabel. These appear in both, but in different spots. In Luke, their descendants, and in Matthew, their ancestors. And even the order changes. In Luke, it goes Eliakim, Zerubbabel, and then Amos. And then in Matthew, it goes Amos, Zerubbabel, and then Eliakim. Again, different number of generations between them, and the ordering is off. I'll even give it an honorable mention. In Luke, they name a Shealtiel, and in Matthew, they name a Salethiel. These are possibly the same person, but again, they're in different spots, different ancestors, different descendants. The issues just keep piling up. Another important note is we're missing 15 generations somewhere. Either Luke added them or Matthew cut them. There are common apologetics for this, as there are most every issue in the Bible. But to me, these are some of the weakest out there. The first is that Matthew is Joseph's line and Luke is Mary's. The problem here is both say Joseph is the son. The text never mentions Mary at all. Luke literally says Joseph, son of Heli. If it were Mary's line, it would say something like daughter of Heli or explain the deviation. Another common apologetic is that one is legal and one is biological. If this is the case, why use Joseph, especially if he was born of a virgin? That claim undermines both genealogies. One traces through a non-biological father and the other still doesn't name Mary. Another apologetic we see is Levirate marriage. This explains the 2 fathers. This is completely speculative. There's no biblical basis for Heli and Jacob being brothers. Neither genealogy mentions it. It's a theological patch job built entirely on silence. Then there's the apologetic claim that they're meant theologically and not historically. Well, fine, but then don't use them to prove Jesus as David's heir. You can't mix metaphor with messianic credentials. Matthew carefully numbers generations. Luke goes all the way back to Adam. Both clearly intend some type of historical framing. The mere fact that these apologetics are so varied shows how desperate the attempts are to reconcile things that just don't fit. if anything, you would think that God would want us to be honest with the text. If we found this type of discrepancy in any other holy book, would we give it the same grace we give it here? And the core issue here, and the crux of the paradox, is if Jesus was born of a virgin, then Joseph isn't even his biological father. Tracing lineage through him makes absolutely no sense, especially if the goal is to prove blood descent from David. And Jewish law doesn't grant tribal identity or royal inheritance through the mother's line. We see this in Numbers 1:18. It shows tribal affiliation comes through the father. So even if Luke somehow gave Mary's ancestry, it wouldn't help. Jesus wouldn't inherit kingship that way. Why does all this matter, the whole genealogy thing? It's because of this claim that a descendant of King David would sit on the throne forever. It's a cornerstone of messianic expectation. And here are some key verses. In 2 Samuel, I will raise up your offspring after you. I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. In Psalm 89, I will build your throne for all generations. We see this echoed in Psalm 132, Jeremiah 23, Jeremiah 33, and Isaiah 9, all expecting a Davidic king ruling in Israel forever. But here's the irony. Jesus never sits on a throne. He's never crowned king in Israel. The king of the Jews was mockery, not appointment. And then finally, he's executed by Rome. If the goal of these genealogies was to prove Jesus was the Messiah by tracing him back to King David, they failed. Contradictory names, missing generations, numerological padding, and worst of all, no blood connection to Joseph. 2 genealogies, 1 Messiah, 0 consistency. If God wanted to prove Jesus came from David, why did he make the evidence so easy to dispute? The truth shouldn't require footnotes or guesswork or even apologetics. It should be obvious to all of us if it's divinely inspired. I'm going to provide the full genealogy list in the description for easy reference. If you don't think these are discrepancies or issues, let us know in the comments how you reconcile them. And if you're enjoying this Biblical Paradox series, thank you. I'd love to hear from you what topic you would like for me to tackle next. My goal is to keep sharpening my own knowledge as well as providing value to the community here. And lastly, if you're still here, like, share, subscribe, interact with the video, watch to the end, all those things. They really help the channel grow. And until next time, keep peeling and be blessed.